Well, my friends, welcome to this special Friday edition of Spot On with Link Lauren. We didn't have time this week to dive into this topic, so we wanted to come back to you on Friday and really give it a go. We're still figuring out what to name the Friday edition of Spot On with Link Lauren. Is it Later with Link Lauren? Is it More with Link Lauren? Someone said Spot Off. That doesn't sound right to me. But this topic I really wanted to dive into is one I've discussed ad nauseum. Everybody in the legacy media is discussing it. There's a huge New York Times piece that's caused a whole ruckus online. All conservatives are laughing at it. There is this article about how the Democrats are spending $20 million to study how young men speak because they clearly are trying to reach young men. I've seen videos every single day. We're going to be deep diving this. Why are young men fleeing the Democratic Party? Well, first off, young men are fleeing the Democratic Party because y'all can't even define what a man is. So let me read you a little excerpt from the article. The article is called 6 Months Later, Democrats Are Still Searching for the Path Forward. Ooh, how dramatic. So to start off, Democrats are staying in luxury hotels to discuss all of this. Donors and strategists, they're gathering in fancy hotels to talk about how to win back working class voters. That's your first mistake. Okay, this is like when Kamala was spending millions on Oprah and Beyonce when she should have gone to Michigan and talked to working class Americans who are the backbone of our country. So they're meeting up in fancy hotels to talk about how to reach young men. Let me read you this. The prospectus for one new $20 million effort obtained by the Times aims to reverse the erosion of Democratic support among young men, especially online. It is codenamed SAM, short for Speaking with American Men, a Strategic Plan, and promises investment to study the syntax, language, and content that gains attention and virality in these spaces. It recommends buying advertisements and video games, among other things. You guys are working way too hard to reach young men. The problem is there are no men for young guys to look up to in the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party is run by a bunch of beta males. Tim Walz, beta male. Chuck Schumer, beta male. Hakeem Jeffries, beta male. Chris Murphy, you're a freaking beta male because you want men and women's sports too, and you're disgusting. You're disgusting. So you guys are sitting around spending $20 million to try to create a new Joe Rogan. They're studying how young men speak to try and like blend in. Are you guys aliens who just dropped down from, Neptune or something? This isn't rocket science. I know a thing or two about men. I know a thing or two about men. I really do. So it's not rocket science, all right, to try and reach young men. Men don't want sky high inflation. They don't want an open border. They don't want to have to apologize for their masculinity all the time. Men in the Democratic Party, they have to explain themselves all the time. They have to say, oh, we're sorry for talking over you. We can't ask a girl out because she might turn around and sue us. If a man sits comfortably as a Democrat, they say he's man-spreading. If he speaks, he's mansplaining. This is what they do. Masculinity is toxic to the left, and they don't understand why young men are fleeing the Democratic Party. They're spending $20 million to try to speak to young men, and I want to know, is it George Soros? Who is spending the $20 million? Because if you're contributing to this effort, you're a buffoon. But also, if you want to send me a check, clearly you have money to throw around and you're an idiot and you don't care. So you're spending $20 million. Someone else who's in the news, who seems to be the new male liberal golden boy for the Democratic Party, has actually been the golden boy for a few years, is Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete from South Bend, Indiana. He is clearly running in 2028. I would bet my bottom dollar Pete Buttigieg is running in 2028. He's been holding events in Iowa. That is a telltale sign. But Pete Buttigieg is out here trying to act like he knows what young men want. He knows how the Democratic Party went wrong. Pete Buttigieg is trying to couch himself as this moderate, common sense, centrist guy who's the voice of reason for the Democratic Party. I was bamboozled years ago too. In 2020, I knew Mayor Pete was not going to win. I knew he was no threat to Trump. I knew he wasn't going to get the nomination for his party, but I actually liked Pete Buttigieg. My mom reminded me the other day. She said, didn't you give a couple of dollars to Pete Buttigieg? I said, I did, because he was someone in the Democratic Party who seemed to have common sense. And I knew he wasn't going to win, but let's help the guy out. I thought I could relate to him. He seemed a little bit like me. He had served our country. He was common sense. Pete Buttigieg is just as radical as everybody else on the left. Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer. Make no mistake, Pete Buttigieg might be a better actor, but this guy is a radical extremist. Pete Buttigieg, I have a few simple questions for him. Number one, Do you support men and women's sports? That is a hard line 80-20 issue. So Pete Buttigieg, who is trying to couch himself as a moderate, why can't you come down on the side of moderate common sense when it comes to women's sports? And Pete Buttigieg, he also tried to go out there and say, I don't know about Abrego Garcia. He's not happy that we're kicking MS-13 gang members out of the country. We have a clip. Let's take a look at that.
They're saying like, oh, well, this guy, he's a criminal. The whole point is that no one person, least of all, no one politician, gets to decide that you're a criminal. Who decides? We have a process. We have laws. That's what due process is. You're not a criminal because the head of the government of the country you live in says you're a criminal.
Make no mistake, Pete Buttigieg is trying to do these Jedi mind tricks. He's a moderate, he's a centrist, he's talking real emphatically and strong. No. A majority of Americans support getting MS-13 gang members off the street. You want to know what due process is? Did you break into the country illegally? Yes. Are you a U.S. citizen? No, get the hell out. That's due process. Most Americans are perfectly fine with that. And to talk about due process, Barack Obama, your leader, whose mannerisms you like to copy, he was the deporter in chief. Okay, Barack Obama deported millions and millions of people. We don't have the time to sit here and wait and wait and wait. They should have waited and gone through the proper process to get into the country. So I am done with all of this. Oh, we're going to support MS-13 and Abrego Garcia. Pete Buttigieg, you would not want Abrego Garcia moving in next to you, Chasten, and the little kids. You would not want that. So you're full of shit for going out there and saying, nobody has the right. If you guys want to keep dying on these hills as Democrats, good luck, Pete. And you keep trying to couch yourself as a moderate. Something else we have to talk about with Mayor Pete. This is a guy who had no business being Secretary of Transportation. No business. All he had done was fix potholes in South Bend, Indiana. And we actually have a picture we'll put up on the screen. Somehow he went from fixing potholes in South Bend, Indiana to being Secretary of Transportation. I call a bunch of malarkey. And Mayor Pete, the East Palestine, Ohio train derailment is going to follow you for years. You are not going to be able to get away from that, okay? President Trump went to East Palestine. He got a hero's welcome. You showed up weeks later. This was just symbolic of the entire Biden administration. Let's talk about Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii. Biden finally goes to Hawaii and then jokes about almost losing his Corvette in a small kitchen fire. Pete finally shows up in East Palestine when these people feel like they've been left behind by the federal government, and he barely wants to wear his hard hat. I don't blame him for that. Would have messed up his hair. Doesn't want to wear his hard hat at all times. That's fine. But Pete Buttigieg, he can also grow a beard. He's growing a beard. He's copying JD Vance's mannerisms. Actually, I find this very funny. And there was a lot of conversation about JD Vance's beard. Anytime a politician grows a beard, they are doing it on purpose. They are very cognizant of image. And there were actually articles that came out about JD Vance's beard a couple of months ago during the election. They said, here's JD Vance's beard and why it matters. I'm here to tell you, Pete Buttigieg, he's studying JD Vance because he thinks he's going to have to go toe-to-toe with JD Vance in 2028. So he's growing a beard, he's copying JD Vance, he's doing the hand motions and mannerisms, he's speaking in the same intonation as JD Vance. So that is what Pete Buttigieg is doing. He clearly wants to run in 2028, and he's trying to couch himself as this moderate, common sense guy. But you're not moderate or common sense if you want men and women's sports, if you want open borders, if you want Abrego Garcia on the street. That is not common sense. And I also have to say, Pete wants to put on this family image. I'm happy he has a beautiful, nice family. I'm not going to attack him for that. I hope his family is happy, but I do find the irony that his husband released a new book, and the book is called Papa's Coming Home. So his husband, Chasten, not a great name. His husband, Chasten, has released a book called Papa's Coming Home. And I found this ironic. I'm glad Papa's coming home. He should have been coming to East Palestine. He should have been doing his job. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad he's coming home because he left everyone else behind, right? This is someone who wants electric vehicles. He wants open borders. He wants men and women's sports. So we will also have our foot on his neck going into 2028. He can grow a beard. He can try to speak to working class Americans across the country and act like he's the voice of the forgotten men and women of this country. He's from South Bend. The industrial Midwest has been hollowed out and left behind. Pete, you are so full of crap. And you fooled me. You fooled me a few years ago. Actually, I thought, this guy's kind of cute and common sense and moderate. No. let me just tell you. And Pete, if he thinks he's going to get the nomination, he's going to have to fall in line with all those big donors and the DNC talking points. He is not going to be some moderate guy. So that is Pete Buttigieg, the liberal golden boy. He's out there. He is clearly running. And if the Democrats think that Pete is going to help them reach young men, good luck to you, because he's polling at 8% currently in a recent McLaughlin and Associates poll. So Pete Buttigieg, we also wish you well. We'll be doing a deeper dive on Pete Buttigieg soon. I'm just sort of, tracking some sources, collecting some more information, but we'll be doing a deep dive on Pete because no one really pokes into his life. No one pokes into his personal life so much. I feel like the mainstream media really gives Pete Buttigieg a pass because he's the first gay, major Democrat to run for office. He can speak in coherent sentences. He doesn't cackle like Kamala Harris every other line. So he's been given a pass, but we're going to be digging into Pete Buttigieg, and I have some things right here that I just want to confirm, and we'll be back with a further deep dive. So he can grow a beard, he can try to act like a moderate, but that is not who Pete Buttigieg is. If you can't come down on common sense on these hardline 80-20 issues, I don't really want to hear what you have to say. Well, my friends, that concludes our special Friday edition of Spot On with Link Lauren. We just wanted to discuss this topic and we didn't have time to get to it this week. If there are other topics you want us to delve into, to dive into, please drop a comment. Other than that, have a safe weekend, okay? Don't get into too much trouble. Get into a little bit of trouble, but don't get into too much trouble, you guys, because we want you to come back on Monday. I love you. God bless you and your families and friends. Thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.